Hi, I'm Pearl Pereira. Welcome to my sewing room. I have some new tools and techniques to show you. So now let's get started. This is a Sherry's Cool Tool. It's a fun iron. It comes with 5 different feet. The one that I use the most is the applique foot. It's a very small, tiny little iron, and as you can see, it's nice and small, flat, and easy to handle. Sherry has now come out with a new cone tip. Might be a little harder to see, but it's a small tip and it's cone shaped. So it goes from narrow to fat. And I love using this. When I use this, I have a second iron when I'm ironing. So I'll be ironing with both of these irons. One with the cone tip and one with the applique tip. Another tool that I've been using recently is the Bowen eraser brush with water. Well, I don't use it for that. I use it for my spray starch. You can take the brush part off, and then if you're using the non-aerosol Niagara, I can hold it up to the nozzle and then I can easily spray into the nozzle and fill the water reservoir, or in this case the starch reservoir. You're going to put the lid back on here, and then once you've done this, your water pen, starch pen, is now ready to start using. Another product I'm going to talk to you about is Fray Block. I find is that it comes out very quickly out of the jar, out of the tube when you're working with it, even though I've put it into a very small hole when I opened it. I now have on my website small, empty bottles with a brush, and I'll take this and I will squeeze it into my bottle, and I can fill this up, and then all I need to do when I'm ready to use it is I can apply the Fray Block to my seam allowance with the brush. I have more control over where I want the Fray Block to go. I have a couple of shapes prepped here with my freezer paper, which I ironed 2 layers together before I cut out my shapes. It's very detailed, or I should say all of mine have been cut out with my Silhouette Cameo. I love to use it because it cuts out the templates the exact way they look when I drew them. This is a very intricate shape, and it has these really small, tiny hole areas that I want to see the background through, making it appear to be reverse applique. This is from my pattern called Octopus Garden, and as you can see in the background here, you can see this is where the shoelaces go through the shoe, and I want to see that in my finished piece so that I can see the background where you would see it through the holes in the shoe. With the Fray Block now in my little applicator bottle, I can come along, and anywhere I have a tight concave, I will apply the Fray Block. Just lightly apply this, keeping it on the fabric, not on the paper. It just takes a second to go along and prepare a shape. Anywhere you have a concave, especially if you're working with a fabric that has very heavy threads and it frays quite a bit, then you're going to want to use the Fray Block. I'm going in the concave areas and just putting a little dot in each of them. This longer concave, I will just go ahead and put it all along this edge. Another thing that I do with this is if I had a fabric like a homespun or something that was very loosely woven, I would come along the outside of my shape and just lightly do the edge. This will keep all the fibers together and make it easier for you to turn. I'll have a small scallop shape here, and on this one I will just come into each one of these little tiny scallops with a little dot of the Fray Block. Once you're done with this, you're going to take each shape and you will iron it to dry the Fray Block. It doesn't come off on your iron, it dries very quickly. But once we get this ironed, then we're ready to work. Anytime you have a concave, you want to make a cut. And when I make my clips, I keep my clips the distance of the thickness of my stiletto away from the paper. It's kind of a hard thing to see. You can read about it in my book, Off the Block Applique with Pearl. And anytime I have any concave, I'm going to come in here and clip. I'm following the contour of the shape. So I'm on the straightaway, I'm going into the valley, and I'm evenly distributing clips as I move along this concave radius. So on a long radius like this, I would be clipping somewhere between 1/8 to 1/4 of an inch continually along the surface, keeping my clips the distance of my stiletto away from the paper. If you want to check your clips to make sure that you have enough clips, you can just run your finger along here, and if you don't feel the template, then you know that you need to make another clip. On a small shape like this, of course we need a very small seam allowance. And my basic clip is 3 clips. One where it's straight, one in the valley, and one where it straightens out again. You're going to clip all of these, and then you're ready to start ironing. The Sherry's Cool Tool, the original small tip, was wonderful for ironing most seam allowance. On this shape right here, I could use either of the irons, but I'm going to show you how to do it with the regular applique foot. I'm going to take my starch and I apply my starch, making sure not to get it wet more than maybe 1/8 of an inch, an inch at a time. If you get your seam allowance damp too far ahead of yourself, that's when you start having problems. Your template will start to get soft. And that's one of the reasons why I use 2 layers of freezer paper. I get a much firmer template and I have a much longer working time. Now I can easily turn this with the small iron, the small ironing foot. And it's easy to get into all of these little concaves and convex. A convex we gather, a concave we push up over the top. So concave, we push it up over the top so that we can make these nice tight mountains and valleys. Now this next 2 I'm going to show you with the new cone tip. So we're going to finish the convex here until we get down into the concave, and generally I stop and switch irons when I know that I can see the clip that I made. So I'm here, and with the cone tip, the nice thing is you can just roll this over the top and spin it around. Makes it really easy to turn. But I would also at this point switch back, if I was doing this, to because I'm working in a convex where I need to gather the fullness. So I'm constantly switching irons. Now on a piece like this, I probably would have just used this one, but I wanted to see that sometimes you need something that is rounded to help you make this round surface. So once you've gone around here, everything is ironed. Then I generally look at my piece from the front, If it looks exactly the way I want it to, then I'm ready to remove my template. When I am ready to remove a template, I iron it from the front, and then I can just easily pull out my template. And I iron it from the back, and then it's ready to go down onto my applique shapes background. A larger piece like this, which has a long straightaway, I can get this damp a lot more than an inch at a time. But if I was doing this one, I would revert to my other small craft iron. And I'm just going to come along and I'm pulling in the mountains, and in the valleys you push up over the edge. So I'm going to iron until I get to the convex right here at the end. Once I'm here, I'm going to switch to the regular ironing foot because I need to gather. I want to gather as I'm going around here. Small, tiny gathers, one pull of the stiletto at a time. And at this point I can see my clip where I had made it, and I would switch, get my concave damp on both sides, come back with my cone tip, roll this up over the edge, roll it around, and catch the opposite side. Now the nice thing about it is you can also iron it from the front. If you didn't quite get it, you can just come in here, lift this up, and help that go all the way around. I still do need to come back in and make sure that my seam is flat. You can see that, I think you can see, that we have these little triangles of fabric. It's the Fray Block that is keeping those the fabric fibers intact so that they're not fraying. So when we're on a convex, we revert back to the regular applique foot. Now I probably should have trimmed my seam allowance here a little bit, but because I'm taking little tiny gathers at a time, I can evenly distribute that fullness all the way around this shape. So what we're getting is we're getting our nice concaves, and that's what we want from this tool. We want to be able to make our nice concaves. The harder one would be these internal concaves. I use my Karen K. Buckley pointed sharp curved scissors. Because they have the sharpest point, I can just poke a hole right in the center of here, and I can make a clip up to 12 o'clock and then down to 6 o'clock. Once I've done this, I'm going to put 3 clips in between my 6 and 12 locations. I'm going to turn it, and I will take 3 more clips in between my 6 and 1 o'clock. Now I'm ready with my starch, and I'm going to apply my starch to the seam allowance just inside there. Something that you can do is you can take your pressing tool and you can just push this in, and as you can see, you might be able to see how the seam is now spreading. So I know that I have enough clips in there, so this is easy for me to turn. I don't always do that. Generally I just stick my fingernail in there and I know that I'm ready to go. Now you can iron this from the front or you can iron it from the back. So from the front, since I've already kind of pre-turned it with the wooden tool, I'm just coming back with the iron and I am just rotating the template around the iron. So I'm taking a rounded tip to help me make this round circle. Once I've done this, I've come back, and from the back I'm just going to come in here and I'm just going to quickly try to swirl around and lay down my seam allowances. If it's the way I want it, then I can come back, hit it with a large iron to get everything all at one time. And one of the things that you can see, hopefully, we'll see if I can zoom in on this, is that you can see all of the little tiny triangles where the Fray Block has kept the seam from fraying. And you can probably see how nice and round the cone tip makes this internal circle. Those are my tips for today. Thank you for watching. You can find all these products on my website at www.p3designs.com. Thank you. I hope these tips will help you with your applique.